Hello, welcome back. In this episode, I'm going to do something I'm not sure I've done before. I definitely haven't done for a while. And I'm going to talk you through live how I use the stuff I've learned and I share with other people to sort out shit in my own life, because it's very apt and very fitting and very poignant for this video, for this episode. So the reason I've not done any sort of YouTube content podcasts for a while. I started up again last year and it didn't get going. And the reason is that in the background when I'm doing this work is I'm always working on my own life constantly. I always say this to coaching clients, like, I am not in some ivory tower preaching to everybody else saying my life's perfect. What I'm doing is sharing with everybody, sharing with you what I've done in my life to improve it, to change things, to come from the depths of darkness, which is where I started 7 years ago, depressed and suicidal, to completely transform my life. And then at this phase, I'm in the phase of building on it to create what I consider to be my dream life. That's where I am. So behind the scenes, I'm constantly assessing things, reviewing things, looking at things to make them better. And towards the end of last year, I made some big decisions in my life to really be cutthroat in what I was doing, because what I'd realised was when I started this journey 7 years ago, I started out on a path to create my dream life, and I got about halfway and then started compromising with different things around money and how I was making money, and then that starts to take up your time. And once your time is being absorbed by stuff that it's stuff you're happy with and you like doing, but it's not absolutely in your dream zone, then there's no time for anything else. So if you want to make time for the dream stuff, you've got to be ruthless and cut away other stuff. That's where lots of people never make the leap, I think. I highly recommend some books I read at the end of last year and I've been listening to on loop since, which is The Big Leap and The Genius Zone by a guy called Gay Hendricks. Really good. We'll get into more of that in future episodes. But that's what I've been doing. So, and as I've done that, I've stripped away loads of things and then started focusing on what I really want to do. And that's the purpose of this video, and that's what's been going on today, is that part of what I really want to do is get back into doing these, get back to doing YouTube episodes and podcasts and sharing stuff, and then more than that, actually getting out in front of people and doing this stuff live, doing it in group situations, because as I've assessed things, that's what I really, really enjoy doing. I love the buzz of working with people and working in crowds and working in front of people. But the first point was to get this going again, get all the YouTube stuff going, get all the online content going, because that's the path to grow things and to sort of ticket into where I want to be. So over the past few weeks, I've been sort of building things up. I've been building things behind the scenes, redoing websites, funnels, customer journeys, thinking all that through. What do I want it to look like? Doing all of that. And then over the past week or two, I've been meaning to do this, sit down in front of a camera and record stuff. And I've noticed I've just been putting stuff off and not doing it. So I committed today that that's what I was going to do. I was going to sit down and finally get some filming done. And it's been insane to watch. One of the big things about doing this work for so long now is I can observe things going on inside me. It's one of the reasons I think I'm a good coach, is that I can now see things that other people can't see. And that includes with my own behaviour, and it's stuff I would never have spotted in the past. I would just never have seen this stuff because there was too many other things piled on top of it. This is after years of stripping away loads of dysfunctional programming. I'm now able to look at stuff and see if what's actually happening. So today I'd lined everything up. I'd cleared my whole diary. I'd even got my clothes ready the night before. I was like, right, I'm going to get up. I'm going to get some filming done. And as I came closer and closer to sitting in this chair and talking to my own phone to do this episode, I wasn't even planning on doing this episode, I was planning on doing others, I could feel the resistance coming up inside me. And I was observing it thinking, what is this? Like, what's going on? So I decided to go for a walk. So I was like, I'm not in the right energy to sit and talk and do a podcast episode. So I'm going to go for a walk. So I went for a walk on a path near to where I lived, next to a river. And as I was walking, I was just tuned into what's going on inside. And this is like a big part of the work that I teach, which is sort of further down the path from where you start. It's where you need to get to, but for many people, there's places we need to go to first before we get there. It's taken me a long time to be able to get to a place where I can just tune into my own emotions and my own feelings and feel what's going on. So I did that while I was walking. And what came up was a visceral, like absolutely visceral, I could feel it in my chest, fear, like absolute fear. And I was like, okay, so sank into that fear. And the next thing that came up for me was an image of me when I was 12. And I've got this story. If you've watched all my stuff from the beginning or read my books, you may have heard this story before. But I've got a story from when I was a kid. I was a high achieving kid, golden child, blue-eyed boy, top of the class in school. And I've got this vivid memory of coming home from school and I got 95% in a maths test. And I came to see my mum and I was like, Mum, I got 95% in a maths test. And she was so proud and so happy. And she was like, that's brilliant. I'm so proud of you. You've done really well. Go and tell your dad. And I can still remember walking into the hallway of our house where my mum still lives now, and going to my dad and looking up at him and saying, Dad, I got 95% in my maths test today. And the first thing he said to me with a complete straight face was, what happened to the other 5%? And honestly, even as I tell you that story now, I can still feel it inside me. And so we talked a lot about childhood trauma over the past, and you'll hear people talk about trauma and what trauma for children and all this stuff. For a while, I was like, most people don't respond well to talking about trauma when we're not talking about anything other than sort of dramatic, serious, capital T trauma, as it's referred to, which is like child abuse and being raised by alcoholics and drug addicts and things like that. Because most people who've had just a normal life will be like, well, I haven't had any trauma. So I like to refer to what happened to us as kids as programming experiences. Everything that happened to us as a kid is a programming experience that programmed our system, that led us to being who we are today. So all of our programs trace back to all of the programming we had as kids. And there's loads of this in my background, as there will be for you in your background, especially if you're a high achiever watching this. There will be instances like this in your childhood that have dictated who you still are to this day, unless you've done something about them. I have dealt with this one particular programming incident so many times, and yet it's still there deep inside me. And I'll jump around a little bit here, but I often refer to doing this work as like being like an onion. I've got loads of different metaphors and analogies for this stuff, but for the purposes of this one, it's like an onion. So when something comes up, your job is to take off the top layer. That's what doing the work is. You have to do all the work around it, let it go, process the emotions. Got loads of different techniques for doing this, but you take away that layer and then it usually goes away. But often we don't know whether it's been fully dealt with until we see whether it comes back again in the future. Sometimes dealing with something once, it's done. It'll never come back again. But this is a perfect example of something for me that was obviously such a big programming event that it's installed deep inside my system and is still coming back after 7 years of doing this work. So it was there today and I could feel it. And as it came up, I just needed to cry. Like I could feel, and it wasn't me, I could feel the 12-year-old boy wanted to cry because that's what he'd have wanted to do. In that moment when my dad said that to me, what I wanted to do was burst into tears. But I couldn't, because more of the program I've had, which was classic for men raised in the 80s and before, and since then, in places like I'm from, is you can't cry. You can't cry as a boy. So what would I have done? Well, I don't even, that's where as is often the case with sort of childhood trauma type memories, that's where my memory ends of that incident. I don't know what happened next. I can guess. But I'd have probably just gone, okay, Dad, yeah, I'll try harder next time. Like, because that's what my dad was trying to instill in me. It wasn't malicious. He wasn't a nasty guy. He was doing what loads of parents have done. You may have done this as a parent. He was trying to inspire me to do more. But what he actually did was install in me a program that I wasn't good enough. That it wasn't okay to get 95%. Like, you have to be perfect. And if you're not perfect, you're not good enough. And it creates a perfectionist persona inside us, which most people have got to some degree, some more than others. Mine's been huge. I'm still a perfectionist in recovery. I've changed loads in my life to come away from perfectionism, but that is what's still inside me. And I felt these tears coming out, and it genuinely was like crying like a little boy. I didn't feel like a man crying. And even as I'm telling you this, it's funny feeling sort of all of the tingles coming up inside, going, oh, you shouldn't be talking about crying as a man. And even as I was in public, bear in mind, when these tears are coming up, I could feel myself looking around. Is anyone on this path? Can anyone see me? Because I'd have stopped myself. If there was other people around, there's no way I'd have been like allowed myself to cry. But there was no one else there, so I could let myself. And the tears came out, and I just calmed. This is why I wanted to share this. This is literally doing the work. This is how it works in real life. I'm talking to the 12-year-old inside me then, saying everything's okay. It's okay to be afraid. It's okay to not get 100% in a test. It's okay to not be good enough. It's okay to not want to do something. These are all programs that were in me from a kid, that like these things were not okay, and they all lead to you not being good enough. So then I was pulled it back around to, okay, once you've felt that, come back around to, so why don't you want to do these videos? And that's what was coming up, basically. That's what was underneath it. You won't be good enough. You'll say things in them that people will criticize. And these are all things logically, intellectually in my mind, I don't care about. I've done so much work on this stuff. I don't care. Like, I'll say anything, I'll do anything. It's just my opinion, or an opinion I currently hold. If people want to disagree with it, that's fine. I'm okay with all that stuff intellectually. But there's still clearly something deep in my subconscious that is afraid of that I still need to work on, which is what I've been doing this afternoon, sinking into it. And then when I sank into the fear, because this is how emotions work, which is where most of the self-help and personal development world just don't go to and push away from, which I think leaves massive flaws in other areas. We need to feel the emotions. We don't need to push them away. You know, all the old school stuff I always learned was all about, well, just don't be afraid, push on, push through. And that's fine, we can get to that. But what we need to do first is feel the emotion that's coming up. It's come up for a reason. So you've got to feel it, because otherwise what you're doing is repeating the story to yourself that you're not good enough, which is what you got from being a kid. You're not good enough. So feel the emotion, feel the fear, which is what I did. And then it's really interesting, because often you'll feel one emotion and see that there's something else underneath. But one of the videos, one of the episodes I was planning on doing is a summary of why we are the way we are and how we become this suppressed version of ourselves and we're trying to break out. And that's what was going on here. And I was conscious of this intellectually, but again, this was feeling it properly. We start out as this full version of ourselves. I'll do a full video on this, but then we get suppressed into this smaller version of ourselves because we've been taught that that's what we've got to be in order to be accepted by the world, by our parents, by our families. And whenever we're trying to break out of that smaller version into the bigger version of us and that's where we're truly happy, we're truly fulfilled, we're full of love and joy every day. Whenever we try and break out of that, that's when our subconscious tries to pull us back because it doesn't want to go. And this is why most people don't change their lives, because they don't even know this is going on. Luckily, I've done so much of this work. I can see what's going on. This is all my subconscious trying to stop me doing this. It's trying to stop me making videos to put out and to develop my life to go to where I want to be, because my subconscious doesn't want to go there. My conscious mind wants to go there, but my subconscious doesn't. And that's what's going on in most of our lives, if not everybody. It's your subconscious that's holding you back. So whatever it is in life that you're trying to do or you think you want to do in your conscious mind, that for whatever reason you can't, and maybe you don't even understand why you can't, this is what's happening. So I can see then, because I've studied this so much and I can observe it, the fear comes up. Once I feel the fear and that goes, depression came up. I felt depressed. And then I was like, okay, why do I feel depressed? And the depression was my ego's way, my subconscious's way of trying to stop me. Another trick. It was like, okay, the fear hasn't worked. You've got past the fear. I'm going to give you something else. I'm going to give you depression now. So it's like, okay, I'll just feel depressed, and I'll just feel the feeling. It's just an emotion. This is the thing that goes back to our childhood. We've been programmed to be afraid of emotions, so we don't want to feel them, so we push them away. But once you've learned how to feel them, they're just chemical reactions in your body. It's just a feeling, so it passes. And this again, stuff from old episodes in my last book. there was a neuroscientist I was watching years ago, and she said that the actual chemical reaction of an emotion, which is what an emotion is, it's a chemical reaction inside our bodies. Most people wouldn't even know that. We wouldn't even talk about that. I never knew that. If you feel the emotion fully, properly, it only lasts 90 seconds. So think about that. Like, if we're often depressed for weeks, days, weeks, months on end, years on end. Some people, I was depressed for so big parts of my life. But now I've learned how to handle depression, which is to feel it. It just passes. But this is all tricks of the ego and the subconscious to try and stop me moving forward, because it wants to stay where we are now. That's where my subconscious feels safe. We're going to get more into that in detail in another episode. But for the purposes of this, I then came home. I was like, okay, I felt the fear. I felt the not good enough stuff. I've processed the 12-year-old stuff. I sat down and did some journaling. And as I did some journaling, I then felt exhausted, like really, really tired. Like I need to sleep. And this is like 5 p.m. And I'd had a really good sleep last night. So I was like, I know I don't need to sleep. Physically, I don't need to sleep. It's another trick of the subconscious to stop me doing this. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to lie down. I'm going to sink into this. I'm going to go with it. Look after that 12-year-old boy inside me again. But I'm only doing that on the basis that we're going to get up and we're going to do this recording. So I did that and I lay there. And what came to me as I was lying there was to do this, to share this story in this episode, in this video, because that's the best way for me to help show the 12-year-old boy inside me that it's safe to do this, that you can just share this stuff and nothing happens. And fundamentally, this is how we end up changing our life. The system I've developed, which I call EPR, Transformational Therapy and Coaching, the EPR stands for emotions, psychology and reality. Because what I've found over the years of bringing all different things from different parts of the world, loads of different experts, I've studied for thousands of hours and years from people all over the place. And when I've brought everything together, what I realized is most people are just sort of doing one or two of those things. But if we want to change our life, we need to look at the emotions, the psychology and the reality, the things in real life. Like if you just study the theory behind things, but you don't learn how to put it into practice in reality, it doesn't matter. You just learn stuff intellectually, it never changes your life. If you just learn how to do stuff in real life, but you never deal with the emotions and the psychology, you're always going to get pulled back. You might get started doing something, but you're going to get pulled back and you're not going to know why. So the whole point of this is to know about everything. So I've talked you through all the emotions and the psychology of it all. But the key is, at some point, you have to just sit down and do it, because the way out is through. Like there's a great book by Ryan Holiday about modern day stoicism, which is the obstacle is the way. Ties into this, which is sooner or later, if you want to teach your subconscious that it's safe to go somewhere else, you have to do that thing and show it that it's safe. But understanding the psychology and the emotions behind it is what helps us get there. So that's what I wanted to do with this. I wanted to just talk you through how I still do this. Like I am doing this every day. I work through this stuff. When I'm expanding my life, I hit the same things. And this is the thing for all of us. It doesn't matter who you are or where you are on your stage of your journey of changing your life. You're always going to hit these limits. As you expand, you are going to hit limits that you need to use these skills and these tools to get through. So that's a brief explanation of how this works. If you like this stuff, I only work privately now on private coaching with a very specific niche, which is high achieving, wealthy men who have achieved success in their life, but don't feel fulfilled, still feel like something's missing, like they're not happy, maybe even depressed, maybe even suicidal like I was many years ago. If that's you and you are interested in working with me privately, I'm fully booked at the moment, but there are links underneath this if you're watching on YouTube to join my waiting list for coaching, to get more information, to get some free training. For everybody else, I am still here to help you. Generally, you can get all of this free stuff. I'm going to start up with more and more content online. You can come and join my community, join my mailing list, so you get all of this stuff direct to your inbox. There's links again underneath this. If you're watching it somewhere else, look in my bio, look, you know the places to look. Everyone's been doing this for long enough now. But there's loads of free stuff out there for everybody else. Look out for the links below. If you like this and you're watching on YouTube, please click the like button. We all do this. You've heard so many people saying this stuff on YouTube for so long, and I'm as guilty as everybody else. You watch something on YouTube, think, I like that. And we never click the like button. Clicking the like button is just a good way of showing YouTube people like this, and then YouTube will show it to more people. It's for the algorithm. Same with putting comments in. If you have any questions about this stuff, if you've got any thoughts on it, comments, think it's bullshit, like it, put a comment in. I'll check all the comments, I'll read all the comments, I'll reply to them. I hope that's helped you. I hope it's made some sense. Stay tuned. There's going to be more to come now that I've done this one. I'll see you soon.